We're out of the brand name, but we do have the generic version of that.
Serene's pharmacy can't keep up with allergy season.
Who's next in line?
They need certified technicians to alleviate the headache.
Ma'am, I'm so sorry for the wait. We'll have your prescription filled soon. I need some help.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water?
Yep. The leading bargain detergent is mostly water.
I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
Well, if you're looking for a better clean, Tide Pods are 88% concentrated ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers. If you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water, pay for clean. If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
No, I'm not going to tell you when I was born, internet, because it was a while ago. And hi, everybody. I don't quite know what happened just then, but happy Saturday evening live tutorial stream. We're doing Kumihimo tonight, which is actually a really fun and somewhat relaxing technique, at least for me, which is good because it's the end of a crazy whirlwind of a week here at the Beading Dreams. So I'm happy to be able to yeah, so yeah, I'm very happy to be here tonight teaching you this technique, which I find relaxing, and hopefully you will as well. Goodness, 7 or 8, I can't even imagine walking 7 or 8 miles with the current temperature in Dallas. I think I would melt. I would just like slowly melt into a puddle as walking, and then eventually there would just be this puddle of Allison on the ground. I think that's how that would go if I tried to walk 8 miles in the current atmosphere of it's 8,000 degrees outside. So Kumihimo is a Japanese cord braiding technique, and it's very, very old. It's been around for a very, very long time. And some of you who went to summer camp around the mid-90s, early 2000s may have actually learned a variation on this technique that you did with plastic lace, with flat plastic lace, and you worked on a disc like this and you made keychains and stuff. That's actually Kumihimo braiding, and this is called the Kumihimo Disc. This is the easy portable way to do Kumihimo. Anybody who's doing fancier Kumihimo will actually use a freestanding frame that's made of wood, and it's called a mardai. I may or may not be pronouncing that correctly, and you can do some really beautiful stuff. So this is just absolutely the simplest iteration of Kumihimo 8-strand braid that there is. Like, it doesn't really get much simpler than this. This is literally the same thing that they teach the kids in summer camp. But it's a really cool way, if you want to make a handmade pendant cord for something, you can make really beautiful things using Kumihimo. You can make them all the same color. You can intermix colors, and it's a really great way to showcase like one really pretty pendant, or in this case, one really pretty bead. So let's talk tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. You're gonna need some satin cord, and this is actually the width of satin that they call mouse tail. You may or may not know, I didn't know before I actually started owning a bead shop, that there are actually 3 widths of satin cord out there. The fattest is called rat tail, the medium one, which is what I've got in my hand, is called mouse tail, and then there's a skinnier one that's called bug tail, which I never have understood because most bugs don't have tails. But anyway,
it's the cutest name.
but it is the cutest name. So this is the mouse tail size, which is about, it's about 2 millimeters. It's hard to tell with the rat tail because it's a very compressible cord, so you know, if you twist it like that it'll get skinnier, but it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2 millimeters for the mouse tail width. But you can do this with any of the widths of your satin cord. You can also do this with leather cord. You can do it with Chinese knotting cord, which is polycord. You can do it with linen. I mean, there really anything, any cord of any kind. Just realized that speaking of linen, I think I flung my piece of linen somewhere. Don't know where. I'm gonna have to go grab a piece of linen in a minute. But yeah, pretty much any cord you can do this with. I'm just gonna go grab that linen spool real quick. That's what I get for just cutting a small piece and then just randomly putting it on my work surface. So when you're doing a Kumihimo braid, it's an 8-strand braid. Typically I will use 4 strands of cord doubled. So your calculation is you basically need each cord to be 6 times the finished length you are looking for. So if you're doing a bracelet, that's pretty easy math. You can figure your endings, because I'm going to use a cone on each end plus a toggle clasp. That's going to add about 1 inch to my project. So you figure you're going to need about 6 inches of braid for a bracelet. 6 times 6 is 36. That means you need 3 feet or 36 inches of cord per strand. So that's 36 inches times 4, so 12 feet of cord is what I am using. Now, if you have a larger wrist, or if you're just paranoid, cut yourself an extra foot on each strand. The satin rat tail cord, generally speaking, is not very expensive, and trust me, you're going to be real upset if you run out of cord at the end of this project. It's always better to have too much than not enough. In addition to your 12 feet of cord, that's your main braiding cord, you're going to need just a small piece of something like a waxed linen cord. You could use a sewing thread for this. You just need something, but if you're using a sewing thread, don't use like a regular thread, use like a button twist or a heavy duty thread. You just need something that's really sturdy that you're going to be able to really pull on. And you don't need a lot of it. Like a foot is more than enough. That's why I just cut myself a foot, and then like I said, I flung it off, I don't even know where. Somewhere safe. Somewhere, well, somewhere not here. I don't know if that's safe or unsafe. And then you're going to need your findings. So you're going to need a couple of cones that are going to fit your braid and a clasp. I'm going to use this toggle clasp, and a little bit of 22 gauge wire. I'm going to use some 22 gauge gold fill. You're going to need about a foot of that just to be safe. As far as tools go, you are going to need one of these. This is, as you can tell, a purpose-made thing for Kumihimo. It's called a Kumihimo Disc. It's the same foamy stuff that they use to make macrame boards, and it's got little notches in the edge, and those notches will hold your cord as you are making your braid. And we are going to have to do a wire wrap to attach our clasp, so you are going to need your 3 basic wire wrapping tools: wire cutters, round nose pliers, and chain nose pliers. And then an awl is helpful for poking through, so that you can get your wires in there. It's not 100% necessary, but it is definitely helpful. You're going to need some kind of a sharp scissors. I'm going to use my metal shears, and a weight. I like doing Kumihimo with a weight, and so I made my own weight with a giant piece of, I kid you not, this is actually sunstone that we've had in the store for about 1 million years. And I just attach it to a big lobster claw. So you need something that's got some heft to it. They do actually sell purpose-built Kumihimo weights, but since I have all the stuff on hand to make my own, I will usually just cobble one together from whatever happens to be hanging around. So I'm going to start by setting up my cords. And so I'm going to take each cord and I'm going to find the middle. Oh, bag of pennies. I mean, whatever works. So I found the middle of my cord, and I'm going to center the middle of my cord over the middle of the hole in my disc, and then I'm going to clip my cord into one notch on either side of center, and I want it to be going completely straight across my disc. So this is not, we don't want that, okay? So I'm going to start with the north-south, so these are both on the same side, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, I've got the center of my cord, center it over my hole, and clip it in. So now I've got two cords that are running parallel across my Kumihimo disc. Now I'm going to rotate my Kumihimo disc, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing with my two other cords, and they're going to be running perpendicular to these first two cords. Alright, so there's one. And two. Okay, so that's your setup. Now, if you are going to use different color cords, you absolutely can. If you set up these two as being the same color and these two as being the same color, you're going to get kind of a spiraling design, which can be really pretty. You can also use all four as different colors, and that's going to make you just kind of a cool sort of model design. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with colors. I'm obviously just using all of the same ones tonight. I'm going to make a note of which cords are underneath, which is going to be the north-south cords, because once I put my weight on, it's going to be a little bit difficult to tell. And then I'm just going to take my weight and I'm going to go up and over and catch all four of my cords with my weight like so. So now I'm going to start with the cords that are going underneath. So once again, that's my north-south set. And I want to make sure that I'm holding my Kumihimo so that my weight is suspended above my work surface. If you set your weight down on your work surface, it's officially not doing anything anymore. Okay, you can see if I set it down, all of a sudden there's no point. Okay, its point is to hold tension on these. Now we have basically 8 cords with which we're working. So your Kumihimo pattern is very, very simple. All it is top right cord releases and goes to bottom right notch. That means that it's just going to go to the notch that's immediately to the right of your bottom 2 cords. And then bottom left cord goes to top left notch, meaning it's going to go to the notch that's immediately to the left of the cord that's already up there. And then you're going to rotate your disc a quarter of a turn. Now you can see it's a student disc, so we've marked the directionality of turning. You don't have to do that. In honesty, it doesn't matter which direction you turn, as long as you're always turning the same way. So since I am very, very biased to being right-handed, you know, I just instinctually always turn clockwise, so I don't ever bother to mark my Kumihimo disc, like my personal ones. But if you're kind of, you know, not sure, you know, feel free to draw, or if you don't want to draw, you can, you know, use a label maker, make labels that have little arrows, say turn this direction on your Kumihimo disc. But it is important that once you start, you keep turning the same way for the entire project. So again, top right goes to bottom right, bottom left goes to top left, rotate a quarter of a turn. Now you can always tell which are the ones you just did, because they're the ones that are parallel, and the ones you need to do are the ones that are kind of V'd out. So top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left. And so I'm holding this up so that my weight is helping me maintain tension here. And I'm just going to keep doing that. Now, if I need to stop, if the phone rings, or you're, you know, Allison, I need you. Exactly. If that happens, Thank you, Carol, for the dramatic illustration. You want to stop in this position, okay? And this is called a bird foot, pretty universally in Kumihimo. This is the only position in this entire process where I could literally put this down and pick it up years later and I would know exactly where I needed to go. This is the only time in the entire process where you don't have pairs of symmetrical discs. So if you need to stop here and you'll always know where to go. When you pick it back up, it's bottom left to top left, and then rotate. If you are going to be putting your Kumihimo down for a couple of years, this is another time when it's good to mark your direction of rotation on your disc, because you may not remember. It's been 15 years since you touched your Kumihimo project. You may not quite know which way you were rotating, so notes are good. So as I'm doing this, what I'm doing is I'm actually starting to create my braid. Notice I stopped at a bird foot. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I've created half of my bracelet, which is about 3 inches worth of braiding, and then I'm going to put my bead on. Now, Heather can tell you a fun story about a Kumihimo project from her past that had not 1, not 2, but a whole hell of a lot of beads on it. And I am really impressed that she made it through that project without having to go to some kind of psychotherapy, because that was a huge pain in the neck. Which is why I'm only using 1 bead for this evening's project. But
I had to go to psychotherapy for unrelated reasons.
Well, yes. I don't think it was Belinda's necklace that sent you to therapy.
No.
Okay, so now I'm starting to encounter problems because if I hold this in camera range, my weight is on the work surface, which is not what I want. So I'm gonna just go ahead and bring this here. So I'm just continuing the same procedure. Top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, and rotate. So which is why I said that it's kind of relaxing, because it's just the same thing over and over, so you can, you know, chit chat with your friends, you can chit chat with your internet friends, you can watch TV. It's another one that you can do on a plane. So I'm going until I have 3 inches of braiding coming down from my disc. And it goes a lot faster than you think it will. Now, just like anything else, like macrame, any of your, I mean, yeah, not necessarily, but it's a pretty simple pattern. So, you know, once you learn the pattern, then yes, if you find things are getting extraordinarily complicated, something has probably gone awry along the way. But like any other fiber arts thing, the finer your cord is, the longer it's going to take you to make any given length of your Kumihimo braid, just like macrame or anything else. So yes, you can do this with the finer cord, absolutely, but it's gonna take a lot longer, which once again is why I chose this cord for this evening's tutorial and not something skinnier. I do have this weird desire to make myself a Kumihimo pendant cord out of like the 0.8mm knotting cord, but I just don't know that I have the patience to sit down and do it in this particular point in my life. Hi, good vibes. Okay, so here we go. That's what I've got so far. Though, to be fair, I don't think you're our local Lego addict. But we're glad to see you. We are doing...
Local on the internet.
Local on the internet, yes. Alright, so we're doing Kumihimo. So that's what I got. I'm going for 3 inches of Kumihimo. So how much do I have? I have 2 inches. 1 more inch. So funny story about this project. So when I made my first sample, I was not paying attention, and I finished my bracelet and realized that I had made the entirety of my bracelet like 4.5 inches long. And that is not a bracelet for anyone adult, so I had to do it again. That is doll jewelry. 47 at, right? But luckily you can join us here on the Beading Dream stream. So we do have another live sale coming up tonight. And I've got more 8-inch strands that I'm going to be doing this evening, and we got a CZ Pave trunk show, which I'm not going to be diving too far into tonight, but we got some charms that I think some of you all will really like. So tune in at 7:30 for the Beading Dreams live sale stream. That's going to be in about it's probably going to be closer to an hour, just because of considering where I am in this project. I don't think I'm going to finish it in the next 13 minutes, but so tune in at around 7:45 Central Time, and that's going to be the Beading Dream stream tonight. Should be a fun one. I want to go visit Planet Legoland. Sounds like fun. Okay, so that's my 3 inches. So I've got 3 inches of braiding. So here is something that I learned when I did the sample for this is this bead, and by the way, this is a bead with a very large hole. You can see it's like a solid 4mm hole, because you need to be able to fit all of your cords through it. But this bead also kind of acts like a stop for your braiding, so it doesn't, you don't have to worry about keeping your cords in order when you put them through the bead, because you're essentially starting fresh. You're starting from the beginning when we do the second half of this bracelet. And once again, don't eat the beads. It's not a lifesaver, it's a lemon quartz bead, which I realize still makes it sound edible, but don't do it. Just do not. No, do not eat the beads. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take all of my cords off of my Kumihimo disc, and once again, doesn't matter, I don't have to keep them in order. Okay, this is, in this particular instance, this is not important. So I'm going to take them all off my disc and just set them down, and I need to make sure this braid does not unravel while I'm doing this, so I'm just going to put a little clip on there to kind of hold that braid together, because otherwise what's going to happen is this is going to start to unbraid itself, and then I'm going to get a really messy look right next to the bead, which I don't want. Then I'm going to take all of my cords and I'm going to put them through my bead, and you're probably going to have to do this, like you're going to be able to get through like 3 or 4 at the same time, and then you're going to have to do them one at a time. So there are lots of beads out there that you can use for this. There are a lot of kind of those Pandora copycat beads out there that have the silver cores that have the nice large holes. So you can use those, just anything that's got a hole big enough to fit 8 of whatever cord you're using through it. And a good trick for getting the cord through is you can kind of take the cord and nestle it in with all of its friends, and then just sort of slide the bead down over all the cords. This is where the satin cord is kind of nice because it's very slick, so it makes that pretty easy to do. Looks like I've got 2 more cords. Hi, Sophia. How's the weather in the Northland? Lori's at 68. We are at roughly the temperature of the surface of the sun. Hi, Jenny. Last one's always the hardest. Haha, got it. Okay, so that's all 8 of my cords are now through, theoretically, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where's my 8th one? Come on, get out of there. There it is. See? It's peeking out right there. Alright, so now I'm just going to pull. So now you may have noticed that this is really messy down by my braid. So I'm just going to pull everything out so that it's straight. Make sure you don't pull your bead off of your cords because you just spent a solid 2-3 minutes getting them all on there. And then I'm just going to slide this down carefully to my braid. And I can unclip my little clip. And that's not a special Kumihimo clip, it's just a little binder clip. So there's no special Kumihimo clip out there, so don't go looking for one. And I'm just going to seat that right up against my braid. So you can also get beads that are big enough to literally go over your Kumihimo braid, but I think this is kind of fun, where it's sort of suspended in between. So now I'm going to take all my cords, put them back up through my disc, and just set them up like, I'm just going to set them up like I'm starting from scratch. So I'm going to do 2 on my, the only difference here is there's, number 1, there's not going to be anything that's, you know, underneath or on top because they're all coming straight out of the bead. And number 2, they're not going to be parallel. They're all going to be this kind of V-shaped look because once again, they're all coming from the center of that bead. But we should have something now that looks like this. And then you literally just pick a spot to start. So I'm going to pick north because that's where I started before. And we're just going to do the same thing. So top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, rotate your disc. Top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, rotate your disc. And you're gonna get your pattern back fairly quickly, as you can see. Now I'm back to that point where I've got the 2 I just did are parallel and the 2 I need to do are V-shaped. I'm going to switch back to here because once again it's too long, so my weight is hitting my counter and that means it's not doing its job. And so now I'm just progressing and I'm going to make 3 inches of Kumihimo braid on the other side of this. 72 and humid. I actually got to leave work yesterday at 4, which theoretically I'm supposed to do every Friday, but I don't get to every Friday, and it was like peak hotness when I left, and I was like, part of me was like, I don't want to leave, I just want to stay at work until the sun goes down. But I didn't. I left. I fled the scene. I ditched Heather. I mean, to be fair, I ditched everybody, not just her.
I felt it the most.
Yes, it was an arrow just sent straight to your heart, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's coming along. You can see I've already got about an inch above my bead. If you're doing this with leather, leather is harder to tension, I think, than, in my opinion, leather is harder to tension than almost any other material with the Kumihimo. So if you're doing leather, every once in a while you want to go ahead and just give your bracelet a pull. Otherwise, what you're going to find happens is you're going to get to the end and all of a sudden you're going to pull it accidentally and it's going to get like 2 inches longer, which is on a bracelet not necessarily what one might want. Let's see, so I finished classes for next week. We've got some fun things. We have a really whimsical, silly little soldering class because I just that was where my head was at this week, is I just needed something silly. So we have a ring that looks like a tiny little teacup. That's gonna be our soldering project for Torch Thursday next week. We've got a cool wire pendant. We have tin cup knotting, which it's been a minute since I did, so I thought it might be a good idea to refresh that technique, and then some leather and pearl earrings as well. Well, I will show you how to make a teacup, Sophia, on Thursday night. Assuming that I don't lose pieces of it like I did this Thursday. But it turned out really cute. I'm very happy with it. It makes me smile. Which, once again, is needed this week. Okay, so continuing with my braiding. See, it really does, once again, once you've learned the pattern, it really does work up pretty fast. So I do want, ideally, for these to be about equal, which means I need a little bit more. I know, super interesting, right? Watching me do this.
I like it.
All right. Okay, so I've got it. So I've got my whole braid. It's the same length on either side of my center. So now I can go ahead and I can finish it and put my cones on. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull it off of my disc. So just take all of those cords out of their little notches. And I'm going to hang on to it because, once again, it's going to start unbraiding itself if I let it go. And I'm going to grab my linen or button twist or whatever kind of sturdy thread you happen to be using to bind off this end. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to wrap it really tightly around the end of this braid. And when I say really tightly, what you want here is you want to pull it hard enough that, see how that's compressing those fibers together? That's the level of compression. That's the level of tightness that you want. Okay, you really want it to be squeezing those cords together, because we're gonna cut this off right at the end of this, and so if it's not tied tight, your end is literally just gonna fall right off of your kumihimo, and then you're gonna have to start over, and that's nobody's idea of a fun Saturday night. So now that I've, and the reason I like the wax is it kind of will hold itself, so now I can get both of my hands onto it, and I'm going to just tie that in a knot. And again, make sure you pull nice and tight. Hey, Teddy Fit! Welcome, welcome! Welcome to the Kumihimo Show. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and I can, now that I've tied that nice and tight, I can trim that. If I want to, I can put a little bit of glue on that. Usually with the waxed cord, you don't necessarily have to, but a little glue never hurt anybody. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that off, literally almost flush with that binding. And so of my 3 feet of cord, I did wind up with about 7 or 8 inches extra on each string. You do need a little bit of extra, otherwise it's almost impossible to finish your braid. So this is not one of those things where you can really effectively run your cord down to the very end, because you at least need enough to go from the center of the Kumihimo disc out to the edge so that you can continue the braiding. So now I'm going to grab my 22 gauge wire, and like I said, I'm using 22 gauge gold filled, but you could really use 22 gauge whatever you wanted for this, and I'm going to cut myself about a foot of it. And I'm going to start on my weight side. The weight side's a little easier because my weight has made a perfect little spot for my wire to go through my Kumihimo. See that little hole right there? That's what I'm going to stick my wire through, just all the way through. And I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to fold it up, kind of like I'm doing a, well, exactly like I'm doing a top drill wire wrap. So I'm going to fold it up so that it crosses. I'm going to grab my chain nose and I'm going to bend the longer of those two wires straight up so that it's basically centered over the end of my bracelet. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the short wire around the long wire, just a couple times. It doesn't have to be very long. And this wire is going to be, this wire wrap is going to be under your cone, so it doesn't even have to be pretty. Hi, Smee. Good Lord. Alright, and we're going to trim, press that end down, and then I'm going to grab my cone and just thread that cone onto my wire. And I just want to give it a good yank so it kind of seats well on the end of that Kumihimo. And then I'm going to use a basic wire wrap to attach my clasp. So I just unattached my toggle parts from each other, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my basic wire wrap. So I'm going to start that with my round nose pliers. I'll hold them so that they are touching the top of my cone. I'm going to push my wire away from me to make a 90-degree angle. I'm going to loosen my pliers, rotate an 1/8 of a turn, and grab right on that corner. Bring my wire back up over the top towards me and down until it hits that cone. So you can see I'm starting to make a loop around my pliers. And then I'm going to loosen, rotate, get those pliers out of the way, grab again, and push underneath so that now I have my lady with a scarf. I'm going to grab half of my toggle and just thread that up and pop it into the loop, and then hold across my loop with my chain nose, and I'm going to wrap down. So I'm going to start at the base of that loop and I'm going to wrap all the way down until I reach my cone. And this one is not going to get hidden, so you want to make this one pretty. So I'm pulling pretty hard on this wire so that I get nice clean wraps. Once I have reached my cone, I'm going to trim. And then I'm going to take that pokey stabby bit that you can see right there, and I'm going to go ahead and press it in so that it just lays nicely with the rest of my coils. Now I need to do the same thing on my other side, but there's not really a convenient hole here to put my wire through. So this is where your awl is going to come in handy, and you can just take your awl and you want to try as best you can not to actually poke through the cord. You want to try and, you know, make a hole where the cords go between each other. Now that's not completely possible, but just do your best. Try not to just smash right through those cords. And then there's my hole, and I grab my 22 gauge wire, stick it through that hole that I just made. And you can also just kind of try and push your wire through your cords. The awl is just a little bit sturdier, so it's going to be a little bit easier. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to pull that up, cross it, and bend the long wire up, wrap the short wire around the long wire. Trim. And just press down. And then drop your cone, and this time you want to make sure you get all of this like random floofiness inside your cone. So just give it a good yank to make sure that your cone gets down over everything and kind of covers it up so that you can't see all that ugliness at the end. And then we're going to do a second basic wire wrap loop. So we're going to go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath. That's my lady with a scarf. Grab the other half of my toggle, thread that onto my wire and up into my loop. Hold across my loop with my chain nose pliers and wrap. Again, starting at the base of the loop and going all the way down until I get to my cone, like so. Once again, we want pretty wraps if at all possible. You could put a bead there. If you wanted it to be a little bit more decorative, trim your end off. And then use your pliers to push down your pokey stabby. And that is your Satin Kumihimo bracelet. So fun technique. You can continue on. You can make necklaces. You can make belts. I'm not gonna lie, I have a half-finished Kumihimo belt somewhere in my world that I haven't seen in years. Bracelets are nice because they don't use a lot of cords, so you're not spending a lot of time untangling. If you are doing things with longer cords, there are bobbins that you can actually wrap the cords up on to make that problem less prevalent, because one of the reasons that I did wind up shoving my Kumihimo belt in a bag and never looking at it again is the cords got so tangled that I was so over it. But thanks so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dreams stream for our Kumihimo Satin Kumihimo bracelet tutorial this Saturday evening. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. Beading Dreams is an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas. We're open for business Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus Thursdays at noon. Free tutorials 5 times a week, and live merchandise sales every Wednesday and every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. That means we are going to be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, in about 30 minutes or so with a live sale, including some fun charms, 8-inch strands, and who knows what else I'm going to dig up. So I'm going to go get ready for the sale, and we'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, in half an hour. Bye, y'all.